Hey there everybody, we are back to go over another free-to-play unit which just came out today, the new Tempest Trials reward unit, Spring Loki, so that's exciting. Quick moment of business, I do have a form going on right now for people to kind of give feedback based on primarily what I'm looking at for like live streams. So if you wouldn't mind taking a minute or two to fill that out, link is in the description. I also posted it to the community tab, so if you've already done it, thank you so much. I really do appreciate the feedback as I try and prioritize my content out now that I have slightly more limited time. So that said, we are going to take a look at Spring Loki right now. And boy, the fan service makes me a little uncomfortable. Don't know how this thumbnail is going to go over, but we'll see. So we're going to be looking at her her weapon skills, her B and C slot skills that she comes with, and then comparing it to some other units that are also Flier, either bow or in one specific case, colorless dagger. Just to give you kind of an idea where she lands. Bow Flier's not all that common, really, particularly the colorless variety, so I wanted to, since we didn't really have any free-to-play units, essentially, that were a bow flyer, I decided to throw in a couple of other notables that people may have, because they have been around a decent amount of time, roughly a year on one, and maybe 6 to 8 months on the other. So they've been in a couple banners now. They've popped up in legendary banners as well, so people might have them. So I wanted to kind of compare the stats and let you guys kind of figure out how you feel about Spring Loki and some other units that you may have. And Spring Loki is very interesting. So first, let's go over her weapon skill. She has the Beguiling Bow, which, if you didn't know, is effective against flying foes. Who'd have thought? And at the start of combat, if foe's HP is 100%, it grants attack, speed, defense, res +2 during combat. Pretty good. You can upgrade it. It is inheritable to all bow users. It comes with the standard attack, defense, res, speed upgrades. It does have a might of 12. Depending on how you upgrade it, could be 13. So not a bad bow. Kind of interesting if you can keep her at 100%. I don't know if it's really going to be all that meta breaking. Typically, I like to look at weapons that have an effective, so things that are effective against cav or armor, you know, something like that. I tend to think that those weapons typically are a little bit more desirable by most people. But she does have Flier formation, which, if you look at the little icon down there, does in fact indicate that it is already a seal. So, do you need that many Lokis? Not really. Not if you're trying to patch up a Flier team. Flier formation is already a seal, but it is kind of useful because it allows the unit in possession of the skill to move to a space adjacent to a Flier ally within any 2 spaces. So if you want to use a seal, if you want to pop it on the B slot, you know, that is what it is. B slot skills are pretty competitive though. You've got old tried and true classics like Desperation and Vantage, but then you've also got, you know, some other stuff like chill skills, and there's a lot of competition with the B slot. So I tend to think that this as a seal makes a little bit more sense, at least until we get like some really breaking seals that don't currently exist yet. But that said, it is useful to have more than one of these on the team, especially if you're running Fire Emblem, so that your Flier allies can move essentially what is an extra space or 2 every turn, if they're close enough. But in terms of actually having it on the unit, the same unit twice, it's pointless. Don't do that. don't give a unit Flier formation in the B slot and then also give it the seal. That doesn't make any sense. Nobody that would not be a good thing. Don't do that. But you can see down there that we do have Flier formation in a couple other units as well. We've got Summer Camilla, we have Leanne, what was it? Wings of Fate, Hinoka, and then Elincia, as well as Spring Loki. So essentially, if you wanted to give Flier Formation 3 to a unit, this is something that is super duper helpful because it was presently only on 3 units that are 5-star locked, and then another unit that is also 5-star locked but seasonal. So it's kind of hard to come by, honestly. And I, for one, am pretty gosh darn happy that that it's now available at 4-star. So this is actually Loki's 4-star skill, if you didn't know. And everybody else's unlocks at 5-star, obviously because they are 5-star locked. So we do have it at the 4-star skill. That is Loki's pretty much claim to fame, because her other skill is actually Goad Flyers, which is around. It has been around for a little while. This grants flying allies within 2 spaces attack speed, or speed attack +4 during combat. Which, you know, when you're working with Flier formation, pretty synergetic, right? Because everybody's within 2 spaces anyway, and if you're running Fire Emblem, it's a beautiful thing. So Loki in general does have good skills. They are very synergetic, and she can be used for multiple things. The thing that you're going to want to look out for, though, is this is available on some of the units as well. We've got Paula, we've got Spring Kagero, Summer Inez, Adrift Camilla, and then, of course, Loki. At the 5-star, it unlocks with Spring Kagero, Inez, and Camilla, and Spring Loki as well. However, the true hero of Goad Flyers is Paula, because she gets it at 4-star, and she is in the normal pool at 3- and 4-star availability, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Everybody else, aside from Adrift Camilla, I don't think that she is seasonal. I think she's in the regular pool. I always get confused about the Adrift. Yeah, so she's in the regular pool. I always get confused about the Adrift banner because like these are alts, but it's a normal pool. But everybody else is seasonal: Spring Kagero, Summer Inez, and Spring Loki, of course, who is not yet available through Grails, but I assume that she probably will be pretty soon. I'll touch on that in just a second. So if you're going for Goad Flyers, just use Paula, honestly. More than likely you've got a handful of her, if you didn't try and +10 her recently at least. And, you know, red is never a bad one to pull on. Most people pull for red when they're trying to summon something, so more than likely you have accumulated some Paula over time. Don't waste the feathers to upgrade Loki and then fodder her off for Goad Flyers, unless you really, really need it. Like I said, unless you really, really need it. Her main claim to fame, like I said, is Flier formation, even though it is a seal. It's not really readily available on anybody else, similar to Goad Flyers, except for Paul. So, with that said, let's move into the actual units themselves and look at Loki's stats, because the stats are actually the most interesting thing about Loki. And I will make a note real quick. I was going to include Spring Kagero, because buns, over over the only other free-to-play unit featured on here, that being Hostile Springs Camilla. But Hostile Springs Camilla is basically just a 1-point better variation of Spring Kagero. So, like, literally beats her in almost every stat, except I think defense. She has slightly, like, 1 point higher defense over Camilla, but she's not meant to take physical hits. So either way, that's why she's not on there. Otherwise, she would have been a contender. The other option also would have been air, but I think we all know how good air is, and so if you have a +10 air, I don't think you're really gonna mess around with any of these units anyway. So it's probably not worth your time. But air is very good. She's not as easy to upgrade like Hostile Springs Camilla would be, so that's why she's here instead. Because I like to kind of limit it to 3 units to compare. So let's look at Spring Loki's stats, shall we? She has a BST of 156, which is already pretty darn good, given that she is a bow flyer. She is a colorless bow flyer, just to clarify. We do have some bow flyers, half of which came from the most recent New Year's banner, and you know, but they aren't colorless. Fjorm is not colorless, so for what that's worth. She has an HP of 39, attack of 31, speed of 34, defense of 27, and res of 25. Now, the thing that you'll immediately notice compared to all the other units that I have listed over here, the the defense stat is considerably different, right? That is pretty unique, honestly. Takumi is the only one that comes halfway close, and to be perfectly honest with you, Loki kind of crushes that. 27 defense compared to 21 is a pretty big hike. And you can see by the rank indicator there. Brought to you by Game Press. Thank you, Game Press. You make my life a lot easier. So, you know, relatively speaking, I think Loki is one of the better flying bow units stat-wise. Skill investment, she's going to take a little bit of work, mainly because her weapon isn't necessarily as good. But you can see the speed, if you invest in a plus 10 Loki, which, question of the day, when are we going to get Grail upgrades? More than likely, it'll probably take place during the April game update, because I think that's going to be a pretty massive update in general. And if they're going to add Grail units at that time, I feel like that makes the most sense. I don't think they'd put it off for another update, because more than likely we wouldn't see one until almost June at that point. So I think we're probably looking at a pretty big update in April, and I think that's more than likely when they're going to include the newer Grail units that we haven't had put in already. So her weapon, you may need to swap it out. She can run Fire Sweep. That's definitely something that she could do, especially at a plus 10, because 34 base speed isn't bad. But again, she does get some cool stat buffs if she's at 100% health. I think probably the interesting thing, the most interesting thing about her is, like I said, the defense and res stats. They kind of topple everybody else. The least interesting thing is her weapon, I think, personally. Takumi, of course, is a pretty decent option if you've already got him. You can see the stats are pretty darn similar, and if you're trying to have some kind of tanky physical build on a bow flyer unit, he's probably your guy if you don't want to go with Loki. Loki overall, pretty much just generally better, I think. But Takumi does exist. He is definitely in the game for sure. Fishy Bow, of course, is kind of what sets him apart. It's got that built-in desperation effect, which is really nice. Way better than the the effect that Loki has, I think. But I guess we'll cover Camilla too, even though she's been in a free-to-play comparison as well. And she's not technically a bow unit, so she does get that dagger effect. It gets a cooldown effect, which is kind of nice. So if you're going to plus 10 a free-to-play unit, Ouch Pouch is kind of nice. I personally am not a huge fan of Hostile Spring Camilla. Stat-wise, skill-wise, she's just kind of Hone Flyers fodder for me personally, but that's just me. I think if you're looking for a colorless flyer that attacks at range to upgrade, Takumi is definitely an interesting choice. He's got a slight edge on attack and speed. Camilla, I don't know, man. Just stick with air. Just go with your free-to-play air. Trust me, it's much better. Takumi though does have that built-in ability. Loki could actually benefit from Fishy Bow Plus pretty darn well. Desperation, when you don't have to put it in the B slot, which is where her flyer formation is at, is pretty darn convenient. I do say so myself. And then we've also got the who are you? Hinoka, the Wings of Fate Hinoka, the Bow Noka, as some people call her. She has the HP of 37, attack 32, speed 35, defense 17, and res of 29. So pretty similar, honestly. Like I said, the thing that really sets Loki apart is definitely the defense stat. You're not going to find a Flier that has that high a defense stat who is also a bow or a ranged unit. Especially not free to play. She's pretty rare in that aspect. The stat line on Loki is definitely very, very interesting. Brave Bow Plus might also be an option that you could run on Loki, but I don't know. But Hinoka has probably one of the better weapons for a Flier that she could possibly have. That is, of course, the Warrior Princess. There it is. It's effective against flying and armored foes, and it grants speed +3, grants attack +3 to allies within 2 spaces during combat. So she's kind of got like a hone attack or a drive attack type situation going on with that. I'm just saying it's not inheritable, so it is basically locked to Hinoka. But if you have a Hinoka, yikes. She also has Fire Formation 3, which we saw down there before. And she's also got Flyer Guidance and Attack Speed Bond 3. So while the defense line isn't nearly as good, res is pretty similar, the speed is pretty similar, the attack is pretty similar, the HP is pretty similar. If you have a Hinoka, if you have a Wings of Fate Hinoka, I should clarify, you're probably going to want to stick with her. Not that Loki isn't good, she's just kind of good in a different reason, I think. And the weapon kind of takes the cake. Warrior Princess is a really, really good weapon to have. So if you've got a good Hinoka, like mine, for example, I think is minus defense plus speed. Hard fought, by the way. Took a lot of orbs died bringing Bonoka home. Definitely invest in her over Loki. But that said, if you've got the fodder to spare, you could definitely build up Loki pretty darn well. And I think you're probably going to be seeing her a little more frequently once people are able to +10 her with Grails. Like I said, the stat line is really, really interesting. It's almost, well, essentially it is better than Wings of Fate Hinoka, which is genuinely saying something. I think it's just the weapon that you kind of got to watch out for. So something like a Brave Bow, Fire Sweet Bow, even Fishy Bow, if you wanted to inherit that to get the Desperation effect, you can do that as well. Definitely worth investing in unless you have Wings of Fate Hinoka. If that is the case, and you don't want someone to tank more physical hits, you're pretty well set. But if you want somebody who's good in enemy phase as well and not going to die at the prick of a toothpick, then you're probably going to want to look at Loki a little more closely. But overall, really solid unit stat-wise. Again, the skills are a little underwhelming. The weapon is a little underwhelming. But a little bit of investment, she could actually be pretty darn decent. So, with that said, this is already a lot longer than I wanted it to be. I was just all excited about bow units, but either way, let me know in the comments if you are excited to build up Spring Loki or not. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Pretty solid unit, honestly. I think I may invest a little bit in her just because +10 potential is pretty strong. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Again, feel free to take that feedback survey form, Google form thing, linked in the description. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below, and I will catch you next time.